John Cougar Mellencamp said on Bill Maher's show that only 1% to 2% of black people in America had a better life today than the slaves did. This is the guy, by the way, who sings Jack and Diane, which is a great bar late night song. 1% to 2% of people say, John Cougar Mellencamp says only 1% to 2% of black people today have a better life than the slaves did. And he later amended it because Bill Maher ripped him and said, what are you talking about? He said, okay, 10%. And before you dismiss this is an argument that the left wing in this country is trying to make because it delegitimizes American exceptionalism. And I made a big deal of this because I think it's significant. Remember, this is essentially the same argument that Colin Kaepernick made. For those of you who didn't take the time, most of you, to watch Colin Kaepernick's Netflix special, Colin Kaepernick's Netflix special, for which his production company and he himself was paid millions of dollars to produce, has a part of that show where they show slaves on the auction block, that is, black men and women being sold into slavery with people bidding on them. They compare that. They switch the black man walking in tattered clothes and chains. They shift it and say, this is basically the NFL Combine. And what I mean by that is they show, you know how you can kind of change the picture? So it starts as a guy walking in tattered slave clothes and turns it into an NFL would-be player at the Combine walking and getting his height and weight taken. And the attempt is to say, oh, this is just a continuation of modern-day slavery. The idea that if you play football and you are being paid millions of dollars a year potentially tens of millions of dollars a year, whether you're white, black, Asian, or Hispanic player, that you are in fact a slave. And I see this and I can't help but mock and ridicule it because did I miss the parts in the history books where slaves had free agency? Did slaves hold out? Did I miss when I was studying American history? I don't think that I did. I'm a history major. Maybe I missed it. Did I miss a part of the history books where if a slave was tired on a day and felt like he wasn't being treated fairly, that he could hold out? Could you retire from slavery? Did you get guaranteed multi-million-dollar contracts in slavery? Would one plantation owner bid against another plantation owner? Was there a salary cap that guaranteed that everybody was going to make a minimum salary that was way more than everybody else made? I'm obviously ridiculing how crazy this is, but this is an argument for the left. And what the argument they try to make is, well, America really hasn't changed very much. Well, I'm sorry. If you actually make that argument, you are a moron, and you're also a liar, because it just means you haven't studied history at all. I'm not saying America's perfect. We all have issues. In fact, we got an idiot for president right now. I think the worst president we've ever had in our life. I wish he was way better than he is. But this idea that things are bad for black people in 2023 like they were in 1843 is crazy. The idea that everyone in America doesn't have way more opportunity in 2023 than we had in 1953 is crazy, or 1913, or 1874. This is madness. And increasingly, in order to be a left-wing individual in good standing, you have to be willing to argue things that are fundamentally untrue, such as this, that only 1% to 2% of modern-day black people have a better life than slaves. I like Jack and Diane. John Cougar Mellencamp should really reconsider all of his political opinions if he truly believes this. People say, Clay, you never say anything positive at all about Joe Biden. That's not true. Every now and then I say something positive. For instance, Joe Biden was on vacation when the WNBA champs visited the White House. Very, very funny that they scheduled the WNBA champs to visit the White House, and they only got to meet Kamala Harris, and Joe Biden wasn't even willing to be there. Like, he's on vacation when they visit the White House. I don't know how much more disrespectful of a WNBA champion you can be. If Trump did this, everyone would lose their mind. But Joe Biden has managed to do something that he promised he would do. Joe Biden, as a promise in 2020, he said, I'm going to unite the country. I'm going to restore a sense of normalcy, decorum to the nation. Joe Biden has at least managed to unite the country. Unfortunately, he's united the country in the belief that he's too old to do the job. This is from an AP poll that is out. 77% of Americans believe that Joe Biden is too old to be president of the United States. And this is tough to do, right? It's tough to get 77% of Americans to agree on anything, but it's also massive majorities of both Republicans and Democrats. 89% of Republicans and 69% of Democrats all believe, meaning 77% overall of the country, 77%, 89% of Republicans, 69% of Democrats believe that Joe Biden is too old to be president of the United States. And I saw this, and I said, okay, this is from the AP. This is from the AP poll as well. What words come to mind when you think of Joe Biden or Donald Trump? And we'll start with Joe Biden. What words come to mind? Old, outdated, aging, elderly. 26% of Americans say those words come to mind. Slow, confused, bumbling, 15%. Okay? Donald Trump's only a few years younger, but what percentage of the American population thinks old, outdated, aging, or elderly of Donald Trump? 1%. 26% to 1%, the electorate out there thinks that Joe Biden is old, outdated, aging, and elderly, does not think that about Trump. Slow, confused, bumbling, just 3% of people say that about Trump. 15% of people say that about Joe Biden. Where Trump is hit is on, is he corrupt, criminal, crooked? 15 say yes. Is he a liar, dishonest, untrustworthy? 8 say yes. That combines to 23% versus 8% who say the same thing about Joe Biden. So if we have a rematch in 2024, it's going to be, right now at least, based on these numbers, Joe Biden's elderliness, his age, his inability to mentally process things versus Donald Trump's criminality. That's basically the election. And I think, by the way, that the number of people who also think that Joe Biden is a criminal will grow. And it may also be that many people think Joe Biden's a criminal. They just think he's also mentally deficient in terms of physical and mental capacity to be president, more so than they think he's a liar. So, again, credit where credit is due. Joe Biden has united 77% of the country in believing that he is too old to do the job.